A very beautiful morning to you all. As we are continuing with our study, we are on the 6th day of the Feast of Tabernacles. We are left with 2 more days for us to feast on the Word. May I welcome you all from the comfort of your homes so we can study present truth. As we are continuing today, we look at the study in another version about these sisters, but today we've got 2 sisters. Instead of those 3 sisters, we are looking at a perspective of 2 sisters. So we are going to start from Ezekiel chapter 23, go to the chapter in the Bible, chapter 23, verse 1. We start from verse 1. We'll find out how God also made the same story through Ezekiel chapter 23. And there is further elaboration on it until we continue in our time, in the time which is future to us. So let's go to verse 1.
Verse 1.
Mm-hmm.
The word of the Lord came again unto me, saying, Son of man,
Right?
there were 2 women, the daughters of one mother.
Right. Still we have 2 women, the daughters of one mother. So I wonder whether these prophecies, we have been reading them to understand what God is talking about, or it was a heap full of chapters in our Bible where we pick and choose what to follow and we leave and discard everything. We're supposed to be reading and knowing what God had to raise Ezekiel writing that chapter 4. So now we have Ezekiel chapter 23 telling us about 2 women. Why? Because women are churches are arranged as women in the Bible. So when he's talking about 2 women, it is 2 set of believers, right? Now, let's see verse 2. Let's hear.
Verse 2. Son of man, there were 2 women, the daughters of one mother,
Right?
and they committed whoredoms in Egypt.
Right. So now it's a verse. It's that there's 2 women. But you know, there's one word continuous with these women. From the chapter of Hosea, we saw whoredom is there. And from the chapters of Ezekiel 16, there was whoredom. Everywhere is whoredom. And which I described that it's not keeping God's laws while you are professing his name. You have to be up to date with his laws. So now it's still these women have whoredoms, but the first place they had whoredoms is not a geographical Egypt, but it is a typical, it's not in a geographical place, but it is in a typical what God calls Egypt in the Bible and the spiritual prophets. So let's hear what happened in verse 3.
And they committed whoredoms in Egypt. They committed whoredoms in their youth.
Right. So these women are the ones that were wrong. It's not the Egypt which was wrong, but it was the women who were wrong. So they committed whoredoms. So what it means, they did not walk in God's laws and statutes from their youth. Right? So let's hear more. How they committed this. Let's hear.
They committed whoredoms in their youth. There were there beasts pressed.
No, read it properly.
Right. And they committed whoredoms in Egypt. They committed whoredoms in their youth. There were their breasts pressed. And there they bruised the teats of their virginity.
Right. This is what they did. You can see God is actually talking about a similitude, not exactly what we believe. Right. So let's hear verse 4.
And the names of them were Aholah the elder and Aholibah her sister.
So we have been told their names, these children. So we want to know, we have been studying Sodom, Samaria, everything. Now we have another name coming from Ezekiel 23. It's saying the first one was called Aholah, and the second one was Aholibah. So the only, one says Aholah, but the other one Aholibah. These are the 2 women, but they are 2 sisters who committed whoredom in their youth. Now let's hear more.
And the names of them were Aholah, the elder, and Aholibah, her sister.
Right.
And they were mine, and they bare sons and daughters.
Right.
Thus were their names. Samaria is Aholah.
Now we know this verse is saying Samaria is Aholah. So from our study yesterday, we know who Samaria is. And we are being told now who Samaria is in these two sisters, Aholah and Aholibah. Samaria now has a name under Jeroboam there, but the other name Ezekiel calls Samaria is Aholah. This is what the Bible says. The Bible says the name was of Aholah was Samaria. Now repeat that verse. That's where their names. Listen.
Thus were their names. Samaria is Aholah,
right,
and Jerusalem Aholibah.
Right. So we see now Jerusalem is being called Aholibah. Samaria was called. So you see, this is very important where we have been coming from with the studies of Jerusalem and Aholah, and but now when we go to Ezekiel chapter 23, we know exactly who is who, right? So that study we have done before has helped us to clarify Ezekiel chapter 23 when he says Samaria is Aholah. So we know now Samaria, the 10 tribes, is called Aholah. And then here Aholibah is Jerusalem, which are the 2 tribes from the previous studies. Now let's continue. 5, verse 5.
And Aholah played the harlot when she was mine,
right,
and she doted on her lovers, on the Assyrians her neighbors, which were clothed with blue, captains and rulers, all of them desirable young men, horsemen riding upon horses.
Right.
Thus she committed her whoredoms with them, with all them that were the chosen men of Assyria, and with all on whom she doted, with all their idols she defiled herself.
Remember in Hosea, Aholah, which is Samaria, was described as Gomer, the wife of Hosea, who also said, I will go after my lovers who give me bread. Did you see that? Now we are being told already she's so materialistic from that verse. And that's why she committed whoredom. She cannot keep God's commandments because of material. Right? Let's hear verse 9.
Verse 8.
Verse 8, right?
Neither left she her whoredoms brought from Egypt, for in her youth they lay with her.
From the spirit of prophecy, it should tell us whether Samaria really went to Egypt. So we have to go from the spirit of prophecy and find out, is there some way the 10 tribes has gone to Egypt after they rejected the 1888 message? Where did they go? Because they did not accept any more messages. So, but where are they right now? The Bible in Ezekiel chapter 23 says she committed whoredoms in Egypt. We want to prove whether that is right. Go to 5T, page 217. We want to go to the paragraph which says the church. Yeah.
5T 217.
Yeah. We see what Sister White says about Samaria or the 10 tribes or the church. Right.
Point 2. The church has turned back from following Christ her leader and is steadily retreating toward Egypt.
So did she commit whoredoms in Egypt? Retreating towards Egypt. So even when you go to Zechariah chapter 6, it will tell you that the grizzled horses were pulling the chariot to Egypt. Did you hear? And this is what we are being told here, that as a proof from the spirit of prophecy, the church went to Egypt after they rejected the 1888 message. That's where they are. That's why in Samaria, they are literally in Samaria where they are waiting the worship from the door of the covenant in Jerusalem. And also, what else did they do? They had to divert also and go to Egypt. Right? Now, let's go back to Ezekiel chapter 2. So Ezekiel chapter 23, when it says Samaria is Aholah and committed whoredoms in Egypt, we now know for sure from the spirit of prophets that's correct. Right? Let's hear verse 10.
Verse 10. These discovered her nakedness. They took her sons and her daughters and slew her with the sword, and she became famous among women.
Right, verse 11.
Verse 11. And
She
when
was famous. We know 10 tribes of Israel. She was very famous everywhere. It's there. And she breaks and say, we are all over the world. We are there everywhere. Go even to Facebook. You find days in this country, in that country, in that country. But the thing is that the spirit of prophecy labels her as Samaria or Ahola, committing whoredoms. Now, let's hear verse 11. Verse 11.
And when her sister Aholiba saw this,
Right?
she was more corrupt in her inordinate
Right.
love than she.
So we were told Aholiba is Jerusalem, isn't it? So in Jerusalem, that's where the voice continued from the door of the sanctuary. And when they refused the 1888 message, they remained in Samaria. But God raised this guy, which we know, the brethren, with Brother V.T. Watef, who was one of the ministers teaching the Sabbath school department, and was raised also to continue with the message, to succeed Sister White. And this is what, he was upright in Jerusalem. But then what caused the followers of this man to be called Aholiba is what we described yesterday, that from 1955, when he died in February 1955, they also refused to follow the new prophet who was Benjamin Roden. That's when they assumed the name Aholiba. Did you hear that? Then when they did not walk with the spirit of prophecy, they now also assumed what Samaria did, that we worship our prophet is dead in the grave, that's our last one. They became Aholiba. Did you hear? 1955. Now let's hear more. Repeat verse 11.
And when her sister Aholiba saw this, she was more corrupt in her inordinate love than she.
Right. So who committed more whoredom? Is their sister now. Because the sister, why is it more? The sister knew why Samaria was rejected. Because Samaria rejected the next prophet. And the sister was happy to be following the next prophet, who was V.T. Watef. That was upright until 1955, when the new prophet came after V.T. Watef died. She became worse off because she's termed worse off because the light of the living spirit of prophets, they had that light. They were actually telling Samaria that you are rejecting the feather light of the fourth angel. But they did not know that the messages of Revelation 14 are not only 4. Do you see that Samaria thought the messages of Revelation 14 are up to third angel? But when Samaria, when V.T. Watef came, Brother V.T. Watef came, he was preaching now the fourth angel. But the Word to the Little Flock, page 10.5 says how many angels' messages are there. Let's read from the Word to the Little Flock. How many angels' messages are there in Revelation chapter 14? They are not 4. That's why God is saying they were worse off. Why? Because they knew that there was feather light. There were not even 3 angels' messages. There was feather light on the 4th angel. And they were supposed to go to the 5th. Let's hear. Are there really 5 angels' messages? Let's hear.
All classes of Second Advent believers agree that the angel brought to view in the 6th and the 7th verses of this chapter
of Revelation 14
represents the Advent message to the church and the world.
That 6th and 7th was William Miller's message, was representing the message to the church and the world.
If this is true,
if that is correct,
then all 5 of the angels brought to view in this chapter represent 5 distinct messages.
Right.
Prior to the Advent, or we are left without a rule to interpret this chapter.
Right. So how can you say, William Miller's message is Revelation 14, verse 6 to 7, right? And you are correct in that. And then also say Sister White's message in the third angel's message, it is verse 9 on the same chapter. And then stop in the middle of the chapter, you have no more angels' messages. Then how can you do that? You have to finish the whole chapter and say, are there still more angels' messages coming in the same chapter? This is what the word to the little flock confirmed, that all 5 are 5 distinct messages coming to the church and the world. So this is why God says now, Aholiba committed a worse-off offense. Why? She knew that there is still further light and that God would not lead the church without the living spirit of prophecy. But she uttered the same sentiments uttered by Samaria, that our prophet is the last one, no more other prophet. And this was worse off. Did you understand? So now when we go to Ezekiel chapter 23, we understand why God is saying, Aholiba, after Vitiwotev died, was supposed to continue with Ben Roden in the same year, 1955. But because they refused to continue with the same and assumed the name Sodom, they now are called Aholiba, who committed worse off than what Samaria did. So there is no way to despise Samaria if you also didn't proceed with the light, because it should be 5. Why should it be 5? Check your hands. How many fingers are there in one hand? 5, right? Why did God make 5, right? And also check when David was killing Goliath. How many stones did he pick? 5. Why 5? Because we will only overcome with the 5 angels' messages. Not 3, not 4, but 5. Do you see that? Now here, we are being told that in her whoredoms, listen, start verse 11.
Verse 11. And when her sister Aholiba saw this, she was more corrupt in her inordinate love than she, and in her whoredoms more than her sister in her whoredoms. She doted upon the Assyrians, her neighbors, captains and rulers, clothed most gorgeously, horsemen riding upon horses, all of them desirable young men. Then I saw that she was defiled, that they took both one way.
Right?
And that
so they all took one way.
One way.
Why? They refused the living spirit of prophets. They all took one way. Now, read on, verse 14.
And that she increased her whoredoms.
And even the whoredoms are even increased.
For when she saw men portrayed upon the wall, the images of the Chaldeans, portrayed with vermilion,
right,
girded with girdles,
right,
upon their loins.
Where is he now heading to? At least Samaria went up to Egypt. But she took the chariot to the Chaldeans, to Babylon. Do you understand? So the state, that's why the state of the church now conclusively is Babylon. That's where the whoredom goes. And you hear people, no, it won't be Babylon. It won't be Babylon. But look at where the 2 sisters were heading to now. They were all one. And they now pulled the chariot. Where now? To the Chaldeans. Listen to what now they did.
Girded with girdles,
right,
upon their loins,
right,
exceeding in dye attire,
right,
upon their heads,
right,
all of them princes to look to, after the manner of the Babylonians of Chaldea.
They now were like Babylonians. When you say the church is now Babylon, you understand. You understand where the 2 sisters left the chariot. You know, when they now pulled, what is it to be Babylon? What is it? When the Israelites were in Canaan, and they did not walk in God's statutes, and did not keep his Sabbaths, where did he send them to? To Babylon. Do you see that? So when Brother Ben Roden came, he had to introduce the keeping of all the feasts of the statutes. All the statutes as they support. That's why you find them even going to Jerusalem to keep the statutes. This is what they refused. And when you refuse to keep the statutes of the feasts, where do you go? Babylon. This is why they went to Babylon. Together with Samaria now, they all refuse the feasts. That's why we are in this feast Feast of Tabernacle today, where are they? Where are they? Where's Samaria? Yeah? Where is Aholiba? On the Feast of Tabernacle, where are they? Fulfilling what Ezekiel chapter 23 has prescribed for them. They are Aholiba, had more wardrobes than Ahola. This is what we are seeing. Right?
And
right. I want you to, we now know they are in Babylon. We want to go to the jump and go to verse 36. That's where our main subject is going to be.
Verse 36.
Verse 36, yeah.
The Lord said, moreover, unto me, Son of man, wilt thou judge Ahola and Aholiba?
Right?
Yea, declare unto them their abominations.
So you see, them two now, Ahola and Aholiba, they are being judged.
Right.
Son of man, declare to Ahola and Aholiba, they both refused the statutes. They refused the statutes which were chained in the dark ages. They refused to take them back to their original place by keeping the Feast of Tabernacle on the date and the Passover on the date and on the place where God has prescribed, by keeping the Feast of Pentecost on the place and the new moons and everything, by getting all the things that Brother Roden had to prescribe so that we prepare to meet the Lord. Where are they? So God says, Son of man, in verse 36, wilt thou judge Ahola and Aholiba? Yea, declare unto them their abominations. Right? That's 37.
That they have committed adultery and blood.
Let's just go now to our subject. You'll find that now God has said, declare the lesson on the we have read that almost 1 year, right? Why these different days? It seems, where he says, it seems though.
It seems as though the Lord is especially good to Rod believers in this case. He seems to take into consideration that we have been so busy warning the Laodiceans of the impending doom.
At first we heard that these two sisters were Jerusalem. Aholiba was Jerusalem, and also Ahola was Samaria. It seemed as though God was being good to Aholiba. But yes, he was good by raising Viti-Hotep. The trouble came when Viti-Hotep died, that they did not continue with the living spirit of prophets, which then took over. Right? Now let's go to Solomon reigned. Let's hear some. Solomon reigned 40 years.
Solomon reigned 40 years, from 1844 to 1884.
Right. This is the antitype of Solomon. 40 years, you go to his reign in the Old Testament, was 40 years. But where do you find this antitype? We find it from 1844 to 1884. That is the 40 years of Solomon's reign, right?
Solomon reigned for 40 years, from 1844 to 1884.
Right.
Since in 1845,
right,
they had a better understanding of the disappointment and what was really taking place. The 40 years then would bring up to 1885.
Right.
The year of 1885 edition of the Great Controversy, when Sister White predicted that soon...
Let's hear what Sister White predicted in 1885, so that we know these 40 years, what is it that brought to that prediction from Great Controversy, page 490. If you have 490, read with us. What is it?
Soon.
Soon.
None know how soon.
Right.
The judgment would pass to the living.
Right. That's what Sister White says. Because in 1844, when Christ entered the Holy of Holies, Sister White claimed that Christ was beginning an intercessory work, investigative judgment for the dead, from the first death, which is Abel, to the last death will occur on earth. But it started in 1844. But here in 490, Great Controversy, Sister White declares that soon, none know how soon, the judgment will pass to the living. From the investigative judgment of the living, of the dead, it was going to soon pass to the living. So she was predicting another phase of the department of the judgment of the living, separate from the judgment of the dead. Now let's hear. Let's count again. There's another 70 years, right? 70 years.
70 years would bring us to 1955.
Right. So with the 70 years, you count, it will bring us to 1955, right?
The investigative judgment of the church, the bundling of the tares, and the marking of the 144,000. Fulfillment of Ezekiel 9.
Right.
At this time, the Lord evidently received his kingdom of the living in figure as he did for the dead in 1844.
So when he entered the Holy of Holies in 1844, he had received the kingdom of the dead, of the investigation of the dead. Let's see in the prophecy when he received that. Let's hear Daniel chapter 7 and verse 13. We want to see when he went into the Holy of Holies, did he receive the kingdom? Let's hear.
I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven and came to Ancient of Days.
Right. So when Christ came from the third heavens to the first heavens, which is where the judgment had been set for the earthly throne, he came on clouds, and this is being shown to Daniel. He came with clouds to the throne, the earthly throne, because prior to that, you can see in verse 9, after that they considered the horn which was speaking things, changing times and laws, and first until the thrones were set. So after the thrones had been set, Christ came in clouds from the third heaven, which is called the universal throne, to the first heavens, came with cloud, and Christ was placed in front of the Ancient of Days. So now what happened when he was in that first heavens, which is the earthly throne? Let's hear what happens.
And there, I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him.
Right. So Christ is in front of the Ancient of Days.
Right.
That's a prophecy that you know of the judgment scene in 1844. That this is the judgment which has been set with all the thrones and the Ancient of Days and thousand ministering. Right, let's hear now. He's been placed there. Want to see, to prove whether he was given the kingdom. So that now in 1844, as he is now accepting the kingdom, and Sister White is saying 490 Great Controversy, he was given the kingdom of investigating the dead, and later soon it will go to the investigative judgment to investigate the living. Now let's hear.
And there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all people, nations, and languages should serve him.
So you see why he had to go into the Holy of Holies, and why they had to stop the little horn which was persecuting the saints, because the judgment was set, and now he was also placed in front of the Ancient of Days only to receive the kingdom. We have seen that the kingdom was received. Now go and clarify it in verse 26.
Daniel 7 verse 26.
Yes, verse 26. Yeah.
But the where it says, but the judgment shall sit.
The judgment said, yes.
And they shall take away his dominion.
The dominion was taken away from the little horn, which was dominating the earth and persecuting everyone. That dominion was taken when the judgment set, right?
To consume and to destroy it unto the end.
Right, and what?
And he shall speak, is that one?
Right,
verse 25.
26 where you are.
26, eh?
Have you finished?
Yeah, finished.
Right, so when the judgment set, it was setting to take away the dominion. So now, next thing we see in verse 13, that when he came, the first thing they did was to stop the activity of the little horn, because the judgment will sit. And then what was given to Christ? The kingdom for the saints now to start worshipping without being persecuted. Right? So here when we're reading in Ezekiel, in Great Controversy, page 490, we see Christ starting from 1844 with the judgment of the dead, And Sister White says, soon he is also going to start the judgment of the living. Right. Let's hear now. Let's hear where you are reading.
The tares.
Mm-hmm.
The tares must be investigated
Right.
in the time
so
of the
why was he
judgment.
investigating? Because the tares also need to be investigated to justify why they are not saved. Right? Uh-huh.
The tares must be investigated in the time of the judgment of the dead,
Right.
in the time of the sixth seal,
Right.
or marking time of the 144,000.
Right.
For they are destined to die.
Right. Because when they're tares, they're destined to die. But still they need to be investigated and everything chronicled properly why they missed the mark. Right? Let's go to the paragraph where it says, in this parable of the two Israel, ancient and modern. Mm-hmm.
In this parable of the two Israels, ancient and modern, we have the Laodiceans,
The
10 tribes in the north,
which
and
is
the-
Samaria.
yeah, Samaria, and the rod followers, 2 tribes in the south.
Right? So that was Judah by then. So we have Judah and we have Samaria. This is what we have been told. Or we have Jerusalem and we have Samaria. Let's go to Ezekiel chapter 23, verse 11. We saw it. Yeah?
Verse 11. And when her sister Oholibah saw this, she was more corrupt in her inordinate love than she,
Right.
and in her whoredoms more than her sister in her
Go
whoredoms.
to verse 24.
24. And they shall come against thee with chariots, wagons, and wheels, and with an assembly of people, which shall set against thee buckler and shield and helmet round about.
Right.
And I will set judgment before them,
Right.
and they shall judge thee according to their judgments.
Right. So we go where you were reading. Both of the sisters,
Both of the sisters,
Ahola
Ahola and Oholibah,
Mhm.
fell captives to the modern Assyria.
which was worldly
Worldly
practices.
practices, yeah. Even as ancient Israel and Judah were taken captive by ancient Assyria. Oholibah went a step further than her sister Ahola,
Right.
in that she fell a prey to the Chaldeans that were not serving God.
Right.
They were fair to look upon when Oholibah discovered her.
Right. So we have read that before. It was just to elaborate. Now let's hear the paragraph where it says the church would not.
The church would not follow the church would not follow the admonitions that were sent through God's servant, Mrs. White.
Mrs. White.
So she was laid away to rest.
So the reason why she was laid to rest in 1915, she had had a lot of rejection from the word God, of her word. That's why she felt rejected. Everything that she did, people would test her. We want to test for mesmerism, for whatever, for what, because there was so paramount rejection on her part. And this is why God had to lay her to rest, to save her from being this disappointed about her work. So this is what we are reading there. Let's continue reading.
He made another attempt to save his people from the world when he sent Brother Hotef
Right?
to work a reformation in the church. The people would not follow the Lord's instructions through the testimonies and the shepherd's rod, and Brother Hotef was laid to rest.
He was also laid to rest because people refused them. They refused his writings. Until today, there are some who don't even want his writings. So it's true. He was rejected and God laid him to rest. Right?
Consequently,
Right?
we see modern Israel has stoned the prophets by rejecting the message they bring and failure to conform their lives to the revealed will of God.
Right.
Modern
So if Sister White did not progress anyway, was rejected, and Oholibah also, same thing, they don't progress with the prophets. Where are we? God is hanging on someone at the end. That's why when he raised Brother Ben Roden, he was also rejected. And even Sister Roden was rejected. They were all laid to rest. There is one thing that God is hanging on. Is hanging on the balance of Elijah. In Malachi chapter 4, verse 4 to 5, it's Elijah who is going to be successful until Christ comes. Now let's hear today. The Lord says in Hebrews 4, verse 7.
The Lord says, today, if ye will hear my voice, harden not your hearts.
Right.
With the two houses of Israel, Judah and Israel, in existence at this time, and a reform needed in both, the voice of the Lord is heard saying, Son of man.
Right. So we hear the voice of God in Ezekiel chapter 23, verse 26. What did it say? Listen.
Son of man.
Son of man.
Wilt thou judge Aholah
God
and
now
Aholibah?
raises someone to judge, or in other words, to give a message to both Aholibah and Aholah. They both should listen now. That's why it says, Son of man, listen here.
Son of man, wilt thou judge Aholah and Aholibah?
Right.
Yea, declare unto them their abominations.
Right. So declare unto them now their abominations, because they have been rejecting the living spirit of prophets continually. Ben Roden laid to rest. Sister Lois Roden laid to rest. And all those that followed, they are laid to rest. But now God wants them. When he raises Elijah, he wants them now to hearken. Because Elijah has been given a message to judge both Aholah and Aholibah. It's their last chance to hear the message and be judged. Because God cannot continue that way. If they are still there, because where was the message right now? Ben Roden had introduced the keeping of the feast. They should go up to that stage. That's where the mark is right now. So, Son of man, can you now judge Aholah and Aholibah? Let them hear the message now and be judged if they refuse. Yeah? Now, go to Zechariah chapter 3, verse 9.
For behold, the stone that I have laid before Joshua,
right?
Upon one stone shall be 7 eyes.
In another way, he raises Elijah, who is now Joshua. So in another chapter, he is presented as Joshua. Elijah, the same Elijah presented as David. The same Elijah presented as Elijah and Malachi. Then here in Zechariah chapter 3 verse 9 is presented as Joshua. Now God is saying, the very messenger which I have sent to judge Aholah and Aholibah has got 7 eyes. Listen, for behold, the stone that I have laid before Joshua, upon one stone shall be 7 eyes. Did you hear now? So 7 eyes, this is a stone that sees. This is a messenger who is going to be coming out with the 12 tribes of Israel, 144,000 in number. They will hearken to Joshua or to Elijah or to David of the hour. This is what God is doing. Why? Because Aholah was rejecting all God's laws and statutes, and also Aholibah made worse rejections. If it didn't reject, so where are they? Are they keeping the feast? Are they also keeping all that Brother Roden, who was raised further, introduced to them? Are they? This is the time they should be judged if they continue not to progress with the light, right? With the evidence.
With the evidence presented here, it is plain to see how the Lord has led his people step by step through the years,
right,
and how the devil has tried to thwart his plans.
Right. So this is what God is saying now. He is going to judge. He wants to judge the two houses, Samaria and Sodom. They have to hear the message the last time. And who is going to be raised to tell both? It's Elijah or Joshua or David, right? These messages that are coming at last, these are the ones that are going to judge Elijah. Right? So I have a message where you can go further where on where I've said the worship sermon. Why are we talking about worship today? Why is the worship? Why today is the first day of the week in the feast of the tabernacle, and I'm talking about worship. Why should I talk about worship? Because in one of the feasts, when we keep the Feast of Tabernacle in the kingdom, that feast is coinciding with Matthew chapter 25, where Christ will be there in the kingdom, and the first fruits of the Gentiles will be offered at the third hour in one of the feasts. When the first fruits, which are called worship, are offered at the Feast of Tabernacle, they are the ones now going to join the servants who are proclaiming the message, taking all the people from different countries, bringing them to the kingdom. But this day marks the day which will start the gospel going to the Gentiles. That's why I'm saying there will be a worship also of the Gentiles, much as there was a worship of Israel. So here, when it is in the judgment of the living, today, the morrow after the Sabbath, we have a worship of the Gentiles when the message extends to the Gentiles. Now, my topic there in the worship, it says, how then, as we know that we have been given Elijah to preach to these two houses, how has Elijah started the work of preaching to these two houses? How then did Elijah start? We want to see how Elijah started. Now, we are going to quote a quote which is on the broadside, April 1, in February 1845. This was written by Sister White. And I'm afraid you Google everywhere, the enemy has hid this quotation, but it is there. You can find them in early writings where you are talking about the unto 2,300 days. That's the topic. So we are going to read. Sister White had this vision, and this vision, why I took it from the broadside is there is a portion where it does not continue in early writing. And that portion is in the book Broadside, April 1. It continues, and that's where it shows where this will end up in the kingdom. That was scrapped so that you don't know where it goes. Right. Now I want us to read this vision of how then Elijah started. Right? Let's go. I had a vision.
I had a vision of events commencing with the midnight cry.
Right. So Sister White said she had a vision of events commencing with the midnight cry. You know the midnight cry, what it is. Right?
I saw a throne.
So she said, the midnight cry was in 1844. So she said she had a vision which commenced with the midnight cry. She saw a throne. So in the time of the midnight cry, she saw a throne future to her. But in other words, she was seeing the commencement of the judgment of the living. Right, let's hear.
I saw a throne, and on it sat the Father and the Son.
Right.
I gazed on Jesus' countenance and admired his lovely person.
Right, so she saw a throne in 1844. The Father and the Son were there on the throne. We know Christ entered the Holy of Holies in 1844. Right, let's hear.
I gazed on Jesus' countenance and admired his lovely person.
Right.
The Father's person I could not behold, for a cloud of glorious light covered him.
Right.
I asked Jesus if his Father had a form like himself.
Right.
He said he had, but I could not behold it. For said he, if you should once behold the glory of his person, you would cease to exist.
Right.
Before the throne, I saw the Advent people, the church and the world.
Right. So before the throne, she was watching the people in front of Christ. In other words, she went into the church and saw two sections. She saw a section which had the church, and then a section which had the world. We know for sure in the church there is a wheat and tares. That's why this is church militant. So she saw two sections in the church, right?
I saw a company bowed down before the throne.
So she saw a company. When the company were offering petition to God, one set of company will kneel. One others would stand in the time of prayer. That's what she saw. Much as people were talking about focamis, they don't know that it was in a vision. And the vision is what God has shown that we will pass through that stage. Right, let's hear.
I saw a company bowed down before the throne,
right?
Deeply interested, while the most of them stood up disinterested and careless.
Right.
Those who were bowed before the throne would offer up their prayers and look to Jesus.
So the company will say, let us pray, and some will kneel, deeply interested, while some will even continue standing, offering prayers, standing, some even chewing gum and talking to God like that in a careless manner. This was seen by Sister White in a vision. Now let's hear.
Those who were bowed before the throne would offer up their prayers and look to Jesus. Then he would look to his Father and appeared to be pleading with him.
While you were busy saying, why are they kneeling? Why are they kneeling? They were busy talking to the Father. They were busy talking to the Father in an interesting way, and Father was listening. While you were busy opening your eyes, checking who is kneeling, but the Father and the kneelers were together. Right, read on. Let's hear.
Then I saw an exceeding bright light come from the Father to the Son.
But what was the token of it?
Bright
the
light.
Father now brought the bright light. After the kneeling, the Father brought the bright light. What is the light? The light of his commandments, statutes, judgments, and everything came when they were kneeling. This is the bright light. Because after that bright light, nothing came. Except the bright light. So, what are we saying? God now had to start to choose who then is going to preach to Ahola and Aholiba. So he has to start selecting from those who Sister White had seen kneeling before the throne. Not those who were standing. But let's hear more.
And from the Son, it waved over the people before the throne.
Right?
But few would receive this great light.
Few received this great light. It's not something that you can brag and say, oh, this country, we are all over. When we are talking about the candidates of the kingdom, it was just few people who would get this light about the feast. And check now, who is keeping the Feast of Tabernacle? Is it many of them who are Sabbath keepers? Or it's just few? So this is the way God used to select the preacher of these two houses, Ahola and Aholiba. This is what Sister White saw. Let's hear more.
But few would receive this great light.
Right?
Many came out from under
Even
it.
some who were under that light, they came out. They were confused. Because some were standing and some were kneeling. So they didn't even know where to go. Because there were many who were standing and many who were standing against those who were kneeling. But God had a mission in that action. You remember when he sent Gideon with the people who were going to fight in war. He said, these people are many. Tell them that those who fear, go back. And they all went back saying, yeah, we fear. I fear. They went back. And he said, there are still many. Take them to the brook to drink water. And when they went to drink, those who were drinking like this, with the arms like this, they were selected. And those who were disinterested were shown by their action. They went with their mouth inside the water. And God said, all those who are drinking with their hands like this will be selected. So God had also a sign to select. And he said, he will put the sign and then he selects. And then people say, oh, those who are kneeling, they're no longer. They will come with the bright light to you. A bright light came to them. Yeah, well, can't you be surprised how somebody who from Africa there would know about the message which long came from the other corner of the world. America went everywhere. How? There's no connection there. But God had to send a mark to choose. To choose who should preach this message. Believe it or not, it's up to you to believe. The ball is in your hands. But here, I'm telling you, biblical and spiritual prophecy, what it has for us to believe. Now let's hear.
But few would receive this great light.
Few would receive this great light.
Many came out from under it and immediately resisted it.
Of course, the ball is in their hands.
Others were careless and did not cherish the light, and it moved off from them. Some cherished it and went and bowed down with the little praying company.
So there was an exchange. There are some who were conscientiously under the banner of the kneeling company who went out. But some also came to join, to fill their places. So this is what happened. Now let's hear.
Others were careless and did not cherish the light. And it moved off from them. Some cherished it and went and bowed down with the little praying company.
Some actually joined and said, no, this light I love.
This company all received the light.
They all got the light which had been rejected by Ahola and Aholiba.
And rejoiced in it.
All the bright light which is coming now as the fifth angel went to this company. You see, there is no connection. Where this company was with Penrod or with the VT, whatever, they were there in America there. But there is no connection with those who are coming from the other side of the world. How do this light go, step and finish with where the location of the first light, where it was occurring, we to call it Mount Bashan and Gilead or Mount Carmel and whatever you call it. But it goes straight. I want us to see why this light had to jump like that. Now, let's see how it had to jump to go to Africa there. Now, let's go to Ezekiel chapter 20. Ezekiel chapter 20. Are you there? Ezekiel, the book of Ezekiel has got many things for these days. This is what Sister White told us in 445 Testimonies to Ministers, that the same sealing which is in Revelation 7 is the same in Ezekiel. Right. Here, let's go to verse 45.
Okay.
Listen to what God will say.
Moreover, the word of the Lord.
So when these Ahola and Aholiba had sealed and said, this message is done, almost done and dusted, we will never keep the feast, never. God had to go and start it somewhere. Listen to that.
Moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face toward the south.
Now he had to go towards the south of the world. Yeah, when you're talking about south, when you're saying east, we are talking about people in Jerusalem. When you're saying north, we are talking about people in the United Kingdom. And when you are saying to the west, we know where it is America. So now, this message had to be taken to the south. Did you see that? That's why you see a purely fresh brand of people now with the same message which was rejected by Ahola and Aholiba. Listen to that.
Son of man, set thy face toward the south.
Toward the south.
And drop thy word toward the south.
Take that word they rejected and drop it to south.
And prophesy against the forest of the south field.
Yeah. Prophesy against what?
The forest of the south field.
Right. This word came now as this sign which was seen by Sister White. People were kneeling and some were standing. And God, you heard in Broadside that God said, a fresh bright light came to those who were kneeling. So this is the word. Drop it towards the south. So the word went to those who were kneeling. Most Sister White saw kneeling first. And he took that word which was being played. You know, when the ball is in the pitch, in the football pitch, and people I know it's well after the match is finished. People will just continue playing round and round, just exercising, playing with the ball like that. This is what the message was like. They were now kicking when there's no match anymore. They've finished rejecting it. They're just kicking this ball. God said, take that ball. Put it to the fresh team which has never played. So that this fresh team should start playing the ball. This is the ball now you are seeing. It's playing hard and hard. So don't come and say, oh, what you are playing is what we have been doing. Yes, and don't tell us about the yes, because this word was taken when Aholiba and Ahola had rejected, and it was sent to the south. And the south are so zealous for it. They are fresh in the football, pitch, that you see how nice it is when you come to BSM TV, coming from the south forest where the word had been poured. You understand now the word is now with the people of God. And it starts going to Ahola and Aholiba. If they believe now, this time they will be saved. If they don't, they are judged. Judge now these two. Judge them. So don't come and tell us your histories and whatever. We don't want to hear about them. We want the thus said the Lord. That said the Lord. Whatever history, whatever they did with the ball there, when they wasted it and they wasted and did nothing and sealed it and said no more match, nothing, we are finished. The match has started, has now begun. Drop the word to the south forest. Now I wanted to hear the same face in another version. Go to Good News. Let's hear what he says in verse 45. Keep it in mind that this same message which you are playing about with it there is now live and kicking somewhere else. Right. Read.
Verse 45.
Verse 45. Yeah. Ezekiel 20, verse 45.
The Lord spoke to me. Mortal man, he said,
right.
Look towards the south.
Right. A completely different brand altogether. Different.
Speak against the south and prophesy against the forest of the south.
Where are the forests? When you go to the south, places like Zimbabwe, South Africa, Botswana, Zambia, everything, you see where it is most centered. When you are in the plane landing, you don't see deserts. You see forests. That's where the word has been dropped. What happens? Listen.
Tell the southern forest.
Tell these forests.
Hear.
When it's a forest, these are trees. So it means the leaders of Samaria who are there in the south, these are leaders. These are forests. Tell these forests. They're there to know. They know. Go and ask them. They know that this message of kneeling, it quacked. It was quacking. But God was selecting the then messengers to preach the message to Ahola and Aholiba. Now, tell the forest, listen to that.
Tell the southern forest,
right,
to hear what the sovereign Lord is saying.
Right.
Look.
So it was not tell the western forest, no. Not tell the northern, no. Not tell the eastern, no. Tell the southern forests. Say that, hear the Lord. That Sister White had seen them kneeling down. Right? Let's hear.
Tell the southern forest to hear what the sovereign Lord is saying.
Right.
Look, I am starting a fire.
Right.
And it will burn up every tree in you.
So
whether green
I am
or dry.
starting this kneeling. Broadside way. He said they were kneeling. That this fire will be felt. And was it felt? Yes, it was. And they say now, we have rested. They are no longer there. No. They've come now to judge Ahola and the Aholiba, their last judgment. Do you understand? Tell them, listen to that.
I am starting a fire, and it will burn up every tree in you.
It will burn up every tree.
Whether green or dry.
Whether it's a green tree or it's a dry, the fire is horrible. Right? Right?
Nothing will be able to put it out.
No one will be able to quench that fire.
It will spread from south to
If
north.
you can't see them kneeling in your church, don't think they are not there. They are there. They are there, and God is working with them, continuously with them. You understand? I want to tell you a very good testimony. When this fire started, this fire, I remember one day I was left alone in my own house when I was in the south there. And I was still thinking of this, controversy over God's work. But at that time, I was still selling books. I was still a literature evangelist, but there was a controversy. But I was thinking, no, I'm not a controversial person. And owing to the fact that controversy, it makes you have a lot of enemies around you. So I was thinking, no, man, let me just let go. Let me just let go so that we maintain unity with people. This is what I was thinking when I was lying in bed. When you're in bed, you think of something that is worrying you. This is what was worrying you. And it happened on that night. I was alone. My husband had gone somewhere because he was also a literature evangelist. So when I was lying down, I was saying, let me let go. I need people to be in harmony, united together, this and that. I will just compromise. Let me tell you one thing. That is the night God came to me. That very night. And you thought, they're kneeling there. And you did not know he was full of fire behind. So that night, in my dream, because dreams and visions were almost the same anyways, and they're almost the same, dreams and visions are the same. So in this dream, it was in the middle of the night, when I said, no, I will compromise. I need unity to be people. The brethren, they should be united. So it was in the middle of the night, I said, when I set myself to say, no more, I need to unite with the people, this and that. And when I was lying in bed, I saw a very huge, enormous tree. Trees in the Bible. If you go to Daniel chapter 4, you find Nebuchadnezzar talking about himself as a tree which has been chopped. Trees are leaders. So I saw an enormous tree. And I was thinking, this tree looks like the one that Christ saw in the Bible and said it was a very, healthy tree when he went, to look for fruits from that healthy tree. It had thick leaves, deep green, thick leaves. When I was watching this tree. This is a very important dream if you want to listen to it. Whilst I was marveling this tree in my dream, there came a huge voice, and I couldn't stand the echoes that came after that voice. The echoes, they send thrills in my body, and I'm watching the tree. And that echo, I need to tell you, this is what I saw. In that echo, the voice was saying, when it says it paused, want to use this tree. This tree shall win many, many souls. It was a huge tree going up to heaven like that. And I'm watching it. And I'm shivering. And I'm all sweaty. My body was sweating when I was listening to this voice. I could really fear. And I'm sure the fear was known that I was now afraid. And then came a small voice, which was like a lady's voice. It said, this huge tree, in a friendly voice. This huge tree shall win many, many souls to the kingdom. I did not know how I fell down on the floor. I didn't even feel the fall, but I was lying on the floor, sweating the whole night. I was scared. When I realized, no, It was because when I slept, I said, enough, I want this I to give up. I said, I went on my knees. I asked God to pardon me. I said, I know I was wrong. When I thought I would let go, I was wrong. From now, give me the strength to continue.
Amen.
And leave all the results and consequences with you. I was sweating, shaking, and I uttered that. The whole day, I was haunted. When I got up, I had no one to talk to. My husband wasn't there. I was shaken. I even carried my books, going door to door, trying to sell this literature. I was a literature evangelist, but the dream, the vision kept on coming. I could not believe. To me, I had one question. Why me? Why me? As I was selling the books, explaining how these books, what is it that these books have, the dream kept on flashing on me and sending thrills on me. I could not believe. I could not believe what I heard. I could not believe. Let me tell you one thing. Ezekiel chapter 20 will speak clearly to you, Son of man, I am sending a word to the south forest. Now let's read. It's up to you to analyze. And some will say, oh, you had not eaten properly. It's up to you. It's up to you. You and I, as we travel together, will better be blessed by that dream than be negative. The dream will send us to know what is happening. But it's nothing to do with my dream. Leave it, it's mine. I have so many of these dreams and so many of these evidences that I could spend lots of time wasting your time. But if they are for me. But let me tell you, it only flashed back when I was talking about this forest of the south. Yeah? God had to select somebody different from those you know, away from everyone, and send a word there. Do you understand? Send a word there. Now let's hear. I'm sending in that version. Let's hear.
In that version.
Right.
I am starting a fire.
Right.
And it will burn up every tree in you.
Right.
Whether green or dry.
It's green or dry.
Nothing will be able to put it out.
Right.
It will spread from the south to the north. And everyone will feel the heat of the flames. They will all see that I, the Lord, set it on fire and that no one can put it out.
Right.
But I protested, Sovereign Lord, don't make me do it.
Right.
Everyone is already complaining that I always speak in
complaining
riddles.
about this fire. They said, I'm starting a fire. Everyone is complaining. No. This tree shall win many, many souls. It was the one going to send the message to Ahola and Aholiba in the four corners of the world, in the judgment of the living. Sister White was raised to preach the three angels' messages for the judgment of the dead. But we still have two more messages of harvest, which somebody should be raised to preach the judgment message, the harvest message, judgment of the living. If the dead needed a prophet, whatever the judgment of the living, does it not need a prophet? It does. If the judgment of the dead had a prophet, which was a female, which is Sister White, who then do we need for the judgment of the living? Who? Use your Metala or Blangata. But let me see. Let's go back to further evidence on that dream, because we need the vision which Sister White was given. We need to know more about it. When it says, when they were kneeling, then a bright light came. That bright light, they enjoyed in that bright light. And the bright light is Elijah was sent with the message of the statutes and the judgments. That's the bright light of the last minute. Right, let's hear.
But
Right.
few would
Few.
But few would receive this great light.
Right. Few
Many.
would receive it.
Many came out from under it and immediately resisted it.
When they came out under the light, they resisted it.
Others were careless and did not cherish the light.
Right. There were some who were not under this light. They did not cherish the light.
So others were careless and did not cherish the light.
Right.
And it moved off from them. Some cherished it and went and bowed down with little
That's how it
praying
is with
company.
that light. When you cherish it, the light goes to you. When you don't cherish it, the light is taken off to other people who can cherish it. Right.
This company all received the light
They all received the light
and rejoiced in it,
and rejoiced in that light.
as their countenances shone with its glory.
And even their brightness from their countenance, their faces showed
Showed.
they had something great.
And I saw the Father rise from the throne,
When they enjoyed the light, the Father was satisfied. He rose from the throne. Listen to that.
and in a flaming chariot
Right?
go into the Holy of Holies,
Right?
within the veil, and did sit.
Right?
There I saw thrones
Right.
that I had never seen before.
Right?
Then
That's a day of atonement there.
Jesus rose up from the throne, and most of those who were bowed down arose with him.
Most of those who were bowed with him, they arose with him. Right? Let's hear.
And I did not see one ray of light
Not even one ray of light went
from Jesus
From
to the
Jesus?
careless multitude.
to those who were careless, who were not kneeling with those. Not even a ray of light went to them. And it is for sure. What we believe. Go to Samaria, they won't even know even the name of the branch. They don't even know even the feast, even the new moon where it starts from. They don't even know. When they have their feast in the wrong dates and what it's because desperately they don't know how to count it. Right? Let's hear.
And they were left in perfect
They
darkness.
were left in perfect darkness, not knowing the dates, not knowing when to keep what.
Those who rose up when Jesus did kept their
They
eyes
kept
fixed
their
on
eyes
him
fixed to Jesus.
as he left the throne and led them out a little way.
But took them off. Thank God for this lockdown. Some people came off with the lockdown and they are off completely because they made the light. Took them out. They can't practice it while the darkness is all telling them to keep the feast in wrong dates, like Samaria says. They can't practice this light like that. And let me see. Let's hear.
Then he raised his right arm,
Yeah.
and we heard his lovely voice saying,
Wait here.
I am
That's
going.
the portion which has been taken off that one. Listen carefully to that portion. God said, wait here. So he has gone out with these people, keeping this bright light or the feast. Right?
And he said, wait here.
Wait here.
I am going to my Father to receive the kingdom.
I'm now going to receive the kingdom.
Keep your garments spotless.
That's the kingdom of the judgment of the living now.
And in a little while,
In a little
I will
while.
return from the wedding and receive you to myself.
Right? Listen to that.
And I saw a cloudy chariot with wheels like flaming fire,
Right?
and angels.
So
were
when he
all-
says, wait here, when you read Ezekiel 9 and see this one is a man with a linen and writer's ink on, don't you see that he was here sealing the people, was here behind the people kneeling, he was here making sure the feasts are kept. And when all the people were now nicely settled, said, wait here, let me go back now and keep the kingdom, and went in a chariot to take the kingdom. And now, listen to that.
And I saw a cloudy chariot,
Right?
and with wheels like flaming fire, and angels were all around it as it came where Jesus was.
Right?
He stepped
Into
into
the
the
chariot,
chariot
right?
and was borne into the holiest where the
Where
Father sat.
sat.
There I beheld Jesus
Right.
as he was standing before the Father,
Right.
a great high priest.
Right?
On the hem of his garment was a bell and a
the
pomegranate.
Yeah.
Then Jesus showed me the difference between faith,
Faith
and
and
feeling.
feeling. So there were some who had faith
And some had feeling.
and some had just feelings. Oh, I'm a Sabbath keeper. It's a feeling, just a feeling. But those who had faith, they were with the bright light, keeping all the laws and the statutes. Right? Let's hear.
And I saw those who rose up with Jesus send up their faith to him
In the holiest.
and pray.
So they were keeping the feasts and keeping the daily, where he said, I will meet you at the door of the tabernacle. They were talking to him all these 2 times, all these feasts, all this. They were together every new moon. They were sending their petitions. Listen to that.
Then Jesus would
would
breathe upon them the Holy Ghost.
Right?
In the breath was light, power,
Power.
and much love,
Right?
joy and peace. Then I turned to look at the company who were still bowed before the throne.
So, but there were some who were left in Samaria who were still bowing, who still bowed in front, thinking they are still continuing with Samaria, but God had taken his. Like, listen to that.
They did not know that Jesus had left.
They did not know that Jesus has left.
Satan appeared to be by the
But there's
throne,
someone who took over the place of Jesus there.
trying to carry on the work of God.
Satan took over the throne and now start to implement, programs which we see, which are not biblical. This is what the devil took over and made sure the people were kept busy singing, doing that, rallies and whatever, efforts and whatever. But they did not know Christ had left. Right?
I saw them look up to the throne
They
and
also
pray.
had to look up to the throne, but they did not know that the throne had been substituted. Christ had left, but somebody had taken over the throne, which was Satan.
And pray,
They prayed to that throne.
My Father,
Uh-huh.
give us thy spirit.
They will pray for the Spirit. Right? Listen to that.
Then Satan
Satan
would breathe upon them
Will
and hold
breathe upon them
an unholy influence.
all the pagan feasts there.
In it,
Right?
there was light and much power.
And there was light also
Light.
and much power in keeping those feasts.
But
pagan.
no sweet love,
And
joy,
there was no
and
sweet love
peace.
and joy.
Satan's object
Right?
was to keep them deceived
He wanted to keep them deceived
and to draw back and deceive God's children.
and also to draw back and deceive all God's children who are still there.
I saw one after another leave the company who were praying to Jesus in the holiest
Right?
and go and join those
And
before
there's
the
some
throne.
who were also leaving the company and going to join who?
Those who were before the throne.
Right?
And they at once received the unholy influence of Satan.
When they left where Christ had left people worshipping under Jesus, the faith at the door of the temple, and they joined Samaria, they also started partaking of the spirit which was in Samaria. Let's hear.
And they at once received the unholy influence of Satan.
Right?
About 4 months since, I had a vision
Listen to that.
of events all in the future.
Right?
I saw the time of trouble, such as never
So
was.
she proceeded now to the time of trouble also.
Jesus told me
Right?
it was the time of Jacob's trouble,
Right?
and that we should be delivered out of it by the voice of God.
Right.
Then I saw,
So where is the voice? At the door of the sanctuary.
then I saw the 4 angels cease to hold their 4 winds,
Right.
and I saw
It's a
famine,
time of trouble such as never was.
and I saw famine,
Right?
pest-
Famine,
pestilence,
COVID,
and sword.
and sword.
Nation rose against nation,
Nation fighting against nation.
and the whole world was in
The
confusion.
whole world went in turmoil.
Then we cried to God day
Right.
and night for deliverance.
Then people of God were crying day and night, please deliver us. This is the 4 winds.
Until we began to hear the bells on Jesus' garment.
Right?
And I saw Jesus rise up in the holiest.
Right?
And as he came out, we heard the tinkling of the bells
Right?
and knew that our high priest was coming out.
Right?
Then we heard the voice of God, which shook the heavens and the earth, and gave the 144,000 the day and hour of Jesus' return.
Right?
Then the saints were free, united and full of the glory of God,
Right?
for he was turned their captivity. And I saw a flaming cloud come where Jesus stood. Then Jesus laid off his priestly garment and put on his kingly robe,
Right?
and took his place on the cloud, which carried him to the east.
So where did the cloud carry him?
To the east.
Now, do you see that it's not the time where the cloud in Thessalonians chapter 4 will carry us to heaven? This cloud then carried Jesus to the east. So this is the portion which was removed. Not so that you don't see that the cloud, there is a time he comes in a cloud which carries him to the east, to Jerusalem. Listen to what happened there.
And took his place on the cloud, which carried him to the east,
right,
where it first appeared to the saints on earth.
First, who did he see when he went to the east?
The saints.
The saints who were worshipping when the 3 times a year feasts. He met them in one of the feasts, there in the east. Right? And
a small black cloud,
right,
which was the sign of the Son of Man.
Right?
While the cloud was passing from the holiest to the east.
Right?
Which took a number of days.
Right.
The synagogue of Satan worshipped at the saints' feet.
Right. That's how we overcome the devil and its Samaria and its everything. But only those who felt, no, I have now to join Elijah's message and move on, because this is purely going to happen.
Yeah.
This cloud carried first the coming of Christ, coming to meet the brethren in the east first. This happened. You and I cannot miss this opportunity of getting the bright light which will make us meet Christ when he comes with the chariot and the cloud in the east, when you are keeping one of these feasts in Jerusalem. You and I have got the ball in your hand. It's up to you to throw it or to roll it the other way or the other way. But salvation is individual. It's not denominational. It is an individual thing for you to follow in the last days. What God has is Elijah's message. The Elijah will be raised to make sure first preaches, judges, Ahola, Aholiba. If there are some who are so fortunate to join Elijah's message and to continue until the cloud comes to meet them, keeping the feast in the east. He first met the brethren in the east. This is what it is in the broadside, where I've quoted this book before it was snatched off from our eyes. So it's my prayer to wish all could continue with Elijah's message until Christ comes to meet. When he came first time, he sent Elijah to prepare the way for the Lord, and it was John the Baptist. And when he comes now, he still comes back to Elijah of this time, who should be preparing the way. Preparing what? Making sure the saints are sealed properly when they meet him, when he comes in a small black cloud in the east. They are all going to be saved and enjoy in the kingdom. And all these prophecies will start being fulfilled. Of going now, the message goes to the Gentiles, taking them to the kingdom, and it becomes enlarged like a mustard seed which grows and fills the whole and becomes bigger than all the trees. And this is what Christ is coming to do. After the last saint has been taken from the heathen countries, then Christ goes back to start the 7 last plagues which go to the Gentiles. The house of God does not wait for the 7 last plagues. Those who have rejected the message will be met by Ezekiel 9. But those in the Gentiles who reject the message will be met by the 7 last plagues. And when the 7th plague, Christ said, it is finished, and comes to collect the saints who are all in the kingdom, to go now to start the millennium, 1,000 years in heaven, so that they see what was happening in this whole controversy. You and I cannot miss such important events. I want to be there. Do you want to be there? May God bless you. May God bless the Feast of Tabernacle.